Okay, thanks so much everybody for being with us today. We are excited. As I've mentioned a few weeks ago, we're in our second year of Lunch and Learns. Raymond calls it season 2, which I think is pretty cool. And I just always want to start by letting everyone know that we are recording this and they will be put publicly on view on YouTube. So that's important for you all to know. And also that the place where the Clay Studio stands and where I sit today, which for today is the same place, not usually, is part of the traditional land of the Lenni Lenape. We acknowledge the Lenni Lenape as the original people of this land and their continuing relationship with their territory. In our acknowledgement of the continued presence of Lenape people in their homeland, we affirm the aspiration of the great Lenape chief Tamanend, that there be harmony between the indigenous people of this land and the descendants of the immigrants to the land, as long as the rivers and creeks flow and the sun, moon, and stars shine. Thanks again to you all and to Joanna Powell for being here today, for driving across the country, for making this amazing work, for being so generous, and being willing and able to help in the gallery a lot. So we're definitely grateful to her and her partner for coming out here and doing so much for the Clay Studio. Thank you. We are gonna get started with I'll just tell you a little bit about Joanna, and then I'm gonna ask her my standard question to start. Joanna Powell was born in Dallas, Texas. She earned her BFA in ceramics from the University of North Texas and received an MFA in ceramics from the University of Colorado at Boulder. Powell has exhibited her work throughout the United States, including at the Archie Bray Foundation, the Montana Territorial Prison Deer Lodge, Chopin Gallery in Denver, Greenwich House Pottery in New York. She was a LEAP finalist at the Center for Contemporary Craft. Powell was a finalist in the Zanesville Prize for Contemporary Ceramics and received honorable mention. From 2013 to 15, she was a long-term resident at the Archie Bray Foundation. She was named NCCA Emerging Artist in 2015, and currently she has a full-time studio practice in Helena, Montana. So we've been talking about this for 2 years, right, Joanna?
A little while, yeah.
I think we started talking and you right around when you were planning your show at Greenwich House, and we were like, oh great, you'll just come, you'll drive up there and then you'll be on the East Coast, we can make it all work together. And then life intervened, and then we were going to do it last year, and then COVID intervened. So here we are, in a little bit more breathing room, that's for sure.
Completely, yeah. Oh, it's good. It's good to finally to arrive.
Yeah, it is. I love it when these long-term projects finally come to fruition, and it's like, wow, we really have been considering this for a long time. So I think as I said, we'll kind of start with the general background art questions, and then we can go towards focus on what's in the exhibition and the fact that you made a lot of this during COVID. So how and when did you make that brave decision to make your life in art?
Well, it did start with all growing up, I was making stuff, around the house, shoes. My dad was a dental lab technician, so he always had plaster and all kinds of stuff. And we would just use the grindings and then put hardener in it, so we didn't pick out the cigarette butts and put hardener in it and squish it together and make a heel. And that was like the beginning. And then I think, just playing around, but it was the one pottery class in community college that really changed my entire life. That, I was taking art classes and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but that spurred, this whole interest in ceramics. It's kind of the typical story you hear from most people, that there's just something about it that sucks you in and you can't resist. And there's just endless failure and stuff that's very necessary in life and whatever. And so it's been since then on this journey to just learn more about art and ceramics and what's going on in the world. And I've always wanted or just focused on it, even when I couldn't even afford to make anything. Like I spend everything on the work. And so it's like this sort of I don't know. It's a weird existence. Like it's just like sometimes you hate what you're doing and sometimes you're totally in love and enamored. And you could it's like it's through that struggle, I think, is where like the real work is made. That there's like sometimes, you're just like so pissed off and that's where the best work comes from. But yeah, but that's community college, one ceramics class. That's where it all began.
So I want to back up for 1 second and say, point out that you were saying like, like when you're a kid and you're making stuff, and I was always making things like shoes. I've never heard anyone else say that they made shoes when they were a kid.
Out of like yarn and I would go get like wallpaper samples from Home Depot, and just like sort of just wrap this like foam structure. They looked hideous. I bet they're still in the closet, and I would clomp around in them in the house. And even like when in undergrad, I started making shoes out of paper, and shoes have been a big like theme in my whole life. I'm just obsessed with the highly crafted object, not a Payless shoe source shoe, like, a Louboutin or something, or like this shoe that like elevates you to some otherworldly experience and makes you basically another creature, which is really cool. How clothes can do that for you, and just, I don't know, shoes, it's just a thing. Like, and I had like with sounds, like a teacher walking across in second grade, I had a teacher that would wear high heels all the time. And just that sound is really relaxing to me, like high heels on a wooden floor. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I love that sound too, but I think most little kids, when they hear the sound coming down the hall, relax is not what they did. They would be like, the teacher's coming.
Exactly. I don't know. My mom would come down the hall slapping a belt. Oh.
Or, the wooden spoon. Anyway, so I'm gonna just sort of have everybody keep in your mind that the idea of shoes, because I think that it says a lot about your perspective on life. It's just, you see things just like any artist. I think that's part of what makes people artists, is they see the world in a specific way, and they kind of realize that it's a special way at a certain point in time, and think like, oh, maybe my perspective is different because it's interesting and I want to share it with the rest of the world. Is that ever how you kind of conceived of that moment when you were like,
no, I never had I still don't have that like thing to say that this work is so important and I want to show it to the world, I guess. Like there's always this insecurity that we always have, that's like, what if all this sucks? Like, what if it doesn't say what I want it to say? Like, those are the constant things that artists think about. And then like, but there's those moments of joy in the studio where you're like, God damn, or whatever, and you look at something, but they're very few and far between, like there's like, there's just that great risk, that we talk about, like, without great risk, there's no reward. So it's really, it's like putting your heart out there. Like vulnerability is really important in my work and how I work. So and I feel like I spill my guts to people too much. I'm too vulnerable, but
there's
I don't
power
know.
in that. There's power in showing people and telling people, in my opinion, possibly because I'm also an oversharer, but I think it's what invites people to be allowed to tell you things, giving them the gift of saying, I'm going to tell you this thing. It's okay for you to share something with me back.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I was gonna say shit, but I edited it out. I was like, we're all in this shit together.
Just let it all hang out.
Yeah.
So you also noted that a lot of people have that experience with clay where it's like, oh, this is something that I want to keep doing. And that was the feeling that you had in that first ceramics class?
Yeah, I was like totally, it was just like the process, like how the clay felt, like the time spent, like where I could, like, my mind could quiet down, and like I'm a very kind of like anxious person. So this is, I feel like if I didn't, I don't know, I always knew somewhere, somehow, somewhere I would be an artist. But like, there was like my dad was like a tooth artist, and like he grew up, and he's like, I'm a technician, but I was like, you're really an artist. And he's mixing the porcelains and matching them to people's like, coffee stained teeth for 40 years or whatever, and he could do that perfectly, when he was younger. And I spent a lot of time down there just sitting in the basement. He had his lab was in downstairs, and just like there's all these like plastic dinosaurs and crayons glued to the ceiling. So I would just sit there and melt them and glue them. And he didn't care. He just let me do that. And they're still down there. And I would hang out. He would like just chain smoke. And my parents both smoked. So there's like this I have this like thing that sometimes I do when I'm stressed, like this. I don't know. It's like a thing from that, from there being this just constant like haze in the house and everywhere, but like you just deal with it or whatever. Um, but yeah,
So you had like a childhood memory of the idea of working clay and ceramic as
yeah, there's this piece I made out of mud that's just like was a family portrait that's just sitting there with like some grass stuck in it. There's only 4 in the portrait, and there's 5 of us. I don't know, either I just left JT out or whatever, but like, I would sit and make like all kids make like these mud pies. We had this thing that we thought was a giant tower in our backyard, but it's really like, now thinking back, it was just like, miniature. But I would climb up there like I was, way high up in the sky, and I would sit and make these mud pies all around the perimeter of this tower, and then they would just stack up until they kind of fell off. And it was just this like thing that I would do. I was very quiet, and it, just went within myself a lot when I was younger. And I don't know, I feel like there was just always something with like, there was always like markers and paper and stuff around. And I don't know, I somehow knew I wanted to be an artist. Like, but I didn't know how to tell anybody or even tell myself. Yeah.
Sorry, people are knocking, but we'll just let them go. So you went to community college and you took this class, and then you kind of had a revelation. Do you feel like you were really good at it right away, or
Oh no,
was it that you could see improvement? I feel like wheel throwing is something that if you're gonna get, or hand building, like you can kind of see improvement over a short period of time. So even if you're not good at it right away, like there's some of that satisfaction that helps people love it. I don't know. Was that part of your experience?
little milestones. I remember this like really slump of a cup that I made. It was about this tall, like very impractical. And I was really proud of it. Like, I glazed it and I was like, fuck yeah, and but in looking back, I was like, wow, they look like real shit or whatever. But just as you progress, it's it's just like, and I think clay progression is very slow. Like I've been working in clay for 15 years, and I feel like I finally I have the freedom to touch the clay and do whatever I want with it. And I'm not like bumbling through technical bullshit anymore. Like so it's like there's that freedom where the work makes itself, essentially, is how I feel. Like it tells me what it wants. And there's like the artist statement kind of is like a manifestation ritual. Like a long time ago, I talked about the work making itself, and it quite wasn't there yet, but that's like what the feeling I wanted to have with the work. And I think that has started happening, like within the last few years. And so I'm like, oh my god, what's next? Like it's great, you get to these little like I don't know, levels of like making or something, or just investigating like in your research or whatever. And
Yeah. It's
I
that idea
mean,
of 10,000 hours until you're a master.
I don't think anybody is ever a master. I think we should take that title from everyone. like, because it's just rude. It's
So, okay, that's valid. An expert perhaps, or is it just that you're always learning, so you shouldn't have
somebody
any of
else is doing it long enough that their hands don't get in the way. Yeah, I think.
That's a good way to say it. Your hands don't get in the way. When do you think that happened? Like in the last 5 years?
I think, yeah, it feels like that. I mean, my mom passed away 4 years ago, so I sank into the pit of despair, like you never know what it's gonna be like when you actually lose someone that loves you. Like there's like I didn't know what love was till my mom died. And I feel like that's what it's just that's just part of life, and like that we're all mortals and we're all gonna die, and there's nothing we can do about it. And yeah, I kind of forgot the question and I'm sort of rambling. I don't know if
Okay. I think that I like it when people forget the question because I think it shows what your brain is connecting, which is maybe sometimes better than what the subconscious brain. So I was talking about when you think you were good enough
oh
for your
no.
hands to get out of the way.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes my hands still get in the way, and it's just like you have a bad day and you're just like, this is not, so you just got to leave. You just got
Yeah.
but other times, you can work through it and find like, some little like secret to life or something in the work, but and that's really the thing, constantly being in the studio. Well, I don't know, we have some guests walking through, but
Faster, yeah. We try to make it so nobody's around, but everyone loves the play studio. They just can't stay away.
it's cool. Everybody come here. Yeah.
Um, well, so I think that there's something we were talking earlier about this, it sounds so simple, but this idea that life is hard, just like when you realize that. And there's something in absolutely when your mom passed away and that gutting statement you just made about you didn't know what love was until she passed away. That's related to this idea of just like having experiences and being a human and kind of understanding life better, and you have to go through these hard times to get to that point. And I would think that's integrally for an artist, that's related to you actually making and deciding what to make, because it's like all the crap falls away, all the like stuff that isn't important and doesn't matter, and you can really focus
Yeah,
because you know what's important on like a deeper level, and that must affect how you make things.
definitely. Yeah. There's not a day that goes by that I don't cry. I think that might be the like, the thing of aging. Like there's going to be some kind of thought that's going to creep in your mind at some point in the day that's going to like take you to a place, even a smell like perfume. Like my mom wore Obsession like by Calvin Klein, and it like I used to hate it. I would be like, it reeks. And now when I smell that, I just like will burst into tears. Like I was at Ulta, that makeup store, and they have all the perfumes, and I just like looked at the bottle and I picked it up and smelled it, and it like just took me like it gives me like this weird chill rush when I think about that smell. And we all have that, like and I don't know, there's just something so like there's something so nice that we can have memories, and we can reflect on those things and be happy. And I don't know, life is, my dad always said, endeavor to persevere. And that's what it is. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and we were talking about that too, and that kind of brings us directly into the work that you made for this exhibition, which has a lot to do with your mom, from what you've told me. And I love that you often talk about your mom and talk about what you learned from her, and you always kind of loop around and talk about your dad too. And kind of earlier we were talking about how their roles in your life were so different, but they're both so important. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, they were always home. Like, my mom started a balloon business in the basement. My dad's like So that was really cool. Like we never went to daycare or whatever, we just would go on a balloon delivery or go on a dental, a lab run,
Even balloons, Joanna, that is like
no,
amazing. What like visual life you had as a child.
we had like, man, Valentine's Day, our whole house was filled with balloons, like, and there were like certain candies she would use, like Tootsie Rolls, peppermints, Hershey Kisses, Jolly Ranchers. So like I got to, we got to where we hated those things because we would go down there and sneak candy and eat it. And but now all I can do is think about that time when I see those different candies even. But yeah, they were there and they supported us. Like they just, my dad did a paper route in the morning and we would wake up at like 4 a.m. and just ride with him in the car because, we just wanted to hang out or whatever. And it was like, yeah, and they fought for us, they stood up for us, like and that's like I learned so much about standing up for other people through my family and speaking up about stuff that's happening to someone. Like I'm not going to sit by and watch someone be shit on. No, like that does not need that, or because there's a lot of that in life that you just have to find your people can be very cruel.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to surround yourself with the people who are willing to stand up for you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you felt your family's presence very deeply, and I've been listening to your talk with Ben Carter on Red Clay Rambler and your Nsika emerging artist talk, and there is definitely that through line of how important that was for you, that structure and the support and the time in your life. And then the idea that you're mining that now, it means it shows how rich it was because it's still there and infusing everything.
We were raised like wild animals, kind of like my mom was just like, I was talking to my brother about, we were kind of feral, but like we knew how to be, behave.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Like I experienced that too, having like different modes of behavior that my mom always said she knew I'd be well behaved other places, even if I was a brat when I was at home. So that was okay. I just put the view on speaker view for a minute. Usually I like look at all the boxes, and there was just your eyes with the eyes behind you when I made your box bigger. Really made me want to focus a little bit on, we can tell people a bit about what's going on. So if you see behind Joanna on the right side, there's a painting, and it has these, you can see the eyes. It also has a mouth and everything. There's a set of ceramic eyes that are going to be hung on the wall on the other side. And then there's a lion with these big eyes watching you as well. Is this, are the eyes about yourself, or are they about being, I know that there are other things in your work too besides your family, so we talked a little bit earlier about them. You want people to feel watched when they're in the gallery.
Yeah, it's like this, there a lot is it like a feeling of anxiety. Like this painting was staring at me for months, and it's there's this tension in them, there's this waiting in them, and that's what we've been doing this past year, tension and waiting and working and struggling, and yeah.
Tell us about why you decided to make the structure of the painting that way. It's wooden and it's got these like undulating.
I was totally like, it has like this almost like digital feel to it. And it's like, it almost vibrates. That was like an afterthought. Like it wasn't, intended that it would vibrate so much when you look at it, but, and I think that there was just, I wanted there to be this, I don't know, this like undulation in the face that would also like kind of have this tension, and it's like Instagram size. It's a square. It's 4 by 4. So I thought about that when I made that. I was like, we live our lives looking at squares, you know, constantly, like hours on end. And um, I was like, that's a comment on, you know, or what we recognize. It's kind of like, you know, a font or something. Like there's this like trashy casino in Helena that has the Disney font, like, and it's like, you know, Dragon's Den or something, but all I can think about is Disney. And I was like, you know, you can't, if there's like such branding involved, you know, and I'm like, doesn't work out. And there's just a lot of
Visual culture.
visual culture, yeah, that is we're impregnated with. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, so visual culture of contemporary things, but also ancient things. So the figures behind you on the pedestals, which people can kind of get a little sneak peek of, are um, women, female forms that have a lot to do with lots of contemporary issues. But Joanna was sharing with me that she was inspired when she went to the Met. Do you want to talk about kind of coming upon that lady in the galleries?
Every time I've only been to New York three times or whatever, but I always go spend most of my time in that ancient, like, you know, Roman section and stuff with all of and they're actually, these eyes are really influenced by that piece. It's, they're, you know, inlaid eyes that, you know, were for a sculpture, and they're, you know, I think there may be stone in the center, but I was just like, that is so beautiful, like to give this like extra attention to the thing that makes us alive, you know. There's like everyone, it's like in someone's eyes you can see, I don't know, I like feel with intuition, like if they're a kind person, if they're, you know, maybe they're hiding something, I can, you know, just that, like I feel like that. And we're always like assessing one another to protect ourselves, or to, like, you know, offer ourselves to someone else. You know, there's just so much in the eyes that are very important in communicating as people, like, you know. um
And they,
but
yeah, they have this, they both have like kind of eyes that are watching you, and then they each have a different arm position. Um, so I think that that whole, what you're saying about eyes is true also about just body language. And that was what you were doing with these. They all have these like slightly different.
they have, like, you know, one has their hands, like, you know, just like this, like straight down, and another one has their hands like over their belly like this, you know. And there's one has their hand behind their back, there's like they're hiding something, and they're all these kind of like yeah, these motions that we go through, you know, either mentally or, you know, like, you know, yeah, and body language is like 100% the language of the world.
Yeah, well, and so this so beautifully ties also into what we were talking about the hierarchy of gender roles in our society, and the emotional labor that is usually thought of as more of a female thing. That we're constantly reading body language and looking in people's eyes and kind of trying to assess how we're supposed to be interacting. I think maybe because we're, you know, very aware of other people, and that there's power in that, but it's often dismissed as not being very important or
It's
not.
viewed as weakness. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm. If
Um,
you feel anything, then you're weak. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
so I love that these pieces that you've made have, they're celebrating that. They're celebrating being able to assess people in this way. And so very contemporary gender issues, but at the same time, there's like a Cycladic figure from ancient Greece that had its arms crossed, and the breasts and like the hips are so reminiscent of the Venus of Willendorf, another ancient sculpture of a woman. So that's why I feel like your work is timeless, because it has like all of these contemporary and ancient things swirling around in it. And you look at those women and you know something's happening, right? Like you have to be, you've made them so that they're presenting themselves to the world, and the viewer has to like try to figure out what's going on. Is that, of course, that's my assessment. I don't know. Is that what you wanted? You want the person who's looking at it to kind of try to figure it out or feel a certain way?
They can have their own feelings about it. It's also that too. Like, I feel like so much of the human experience is universal, and there's some kind of moment in your life that you're going to be able to connect to, like man or woman, we're all people, and it's like there's definitely different struggles in that. And I just like, I wish there could, like, I know in my lifetime there won't be any kind of gender harmony or like accepting, everyone's working like to make things better, but there's always like a side that's going to resist and want to be, I want to live in the past or whatever. And it's like, oh, gosh. But so there's I think that there's, and they're also these silly objects too. They're not just about, it's like all I could do is laugh when I was like making that first lady, like, and I'd put a drawing on her mouth as the mouth, and it was like on the banding wheel, and when it turned around just to me and the mouth revealed itself, all I could do was just laugh. And I sent a picture to my sister, and she just like was rolling. Yeah. So there's a lot of that, like there is like the joy in the studio too of the silliness. Yeah.
And that speaks to the universality too, right? Because something that can make you laugh is also kind of can be pretty terrible, and or like there are just two sides of to the coin. Or like you were saying, however a person is feeling in that moment, or whatever experience is like closest to the top is going to be what they see. Are people waving to you from the street?
Oh, there's a lady looking in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a strange situation, this zooming world that we live in. We have to figure out how to have more squares and talk to real people in real life, and then all of us on Zoom at the same time. The other thing about them is that there's 4, and so there's this wonderful decision about how to place them, because if you put them all, there's one thing, if you put them next to each other, evenly spaced, and they're facing forward, and then you just turn 2 of them towards each other and then moved one away a tiny bit, and it was a completely different story. Just
yeah.
little action.
Well, just like loitering, as we loiter, we don't stand in a line,
Yeah,
we
but
kinda,
I mean, there's something about like all of a sudden these 2 are in relationship.
yeah, they begin to, like, I don't know, in a way kind of they're standing together judging the other one.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's a whole story just from this like little adjustments that you're making.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, and we'll come to them at the end. And that also, we are excited that Joanna's going to be here for a few days. So if you want to come by on Friday from 5 to 7,
I'll be here.
you get to see her in real life.
Oh.
So exciting. And then the other, well, there's a lot to talk about, but we can have a little sneak peek of the urns. So there's a line of 5 urns. You can kind of see them towards the left of
Even
give us a sneak peek of the ladies' faces too, if you have. Oh, there are the urns. Yep.
they have, I don't know if you could,
Yeah, there you go.
meals.
And
And then there's these women. I don't know if you can.
Well, and that's what, certainly if it came around on the banding wheel, you would be gonna look at people every time.
Like this lady.
It just occurred to me that her eyes are oranges. I didn't really notice that before.
Oh yeah.
How did I not notice that? I don't know why.
Bulging.
And she has flowers in her hair.
Yeah, and a big green stripe down her back. Chrome.
Yeah.
Green. But yeah, and there's this one with I don't know if you could see the hand behind the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She's the one who's hiding something, and she's also kind of, she's being ostracized or something because she's not on the same pedestal with the other ladies. So
it's like, I'm out of here. I don't know. Irish goodbye. I don't know. Like,
Irish goodbye. So the processional is that group of 5 urns, and they have hands holding them. Talk a little bit about how you imagine that.
just to like, because there's just like so much about them, like that, they were like just this like really, I wanted them to be like these caring. And I thought about it like this, actually. I know it sounds like
Oh, that's it.
people like carrying this, these, they're going to be filled with flowers as if like, a processional. Yeah.
And
Yeah. But I wanted the hands to just be very of a woman, that they weren't these big honking man hands, Yeah.
you're kind of elegant,
Mhm.
and they're holding the urns, and so they're caring for them. They're representing how women nurture people, right?
That, and also just I was thinking about like, this is another thing, thinking about just my mom and love, and really thinking about love and caring, and that I wanted there to be this like, there's something, like if someone does this to you in like a way, like that just feels like really sweet. And that's what I wanted them to be, and they're gonna be just like, bursting with like life that will dissipate the flowers,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then I feel like it's such a hard thing to talk about. So I almost hesitate to ask kinds of questions like this, but I think it was so powerful. And you wrote it in your artist statement about looking at your mom and the connection to her eyes after she passed away.
Yeah, that's that sparkle is gone. Like we went and we saw her at the funeral home, and she was cold. She'd been like refrigerated and smelled sweet. And like, I like hugged her and I cut a piece of her hair off and I opened her eye like this. And that's when I realized the hard line between life and death is so it's cut and dry. There's no in between. And it was a few days later I came across this beautiful dragonfly that had, died, and it was like still like bursting with its iridescence. And so I picked it up and I put it inside, like expecting that it would stay, and no, over the hours it just faded. And it was just like that same experience of like, the color, everything fades from us as we like, as we pass on and go to another place, or become hopefully a house cat or something.
Is that your ultimate existence?
Like if I could be treated like my cat, yeah. Pancho, he's a king. Like, yeah.
Yes, they're the well taken care of ones have good lives, that's for sure. So and there you go, you went from something so sad and melancholy and you sort of ended with a smile and a bit of a joke, because I think that's part of that dichotomy of life. We're always kind of looking at both the good and the bad together, because that's how you survive. So let's talk a little bit more about your life as an artist now. So you live in Montana. Does the landscape affect you there? I mean, you're from Texas, which is a very different landscape, I would think. Or how do you engage with that?
I guess I don't really. I love going outside and hiking and stuff, but I don't necessarily say I look to like, Montana's very dry, and I'm like really interested in tropical plants and stuff. So I guess like my house is my inspiration because I have tons of house plants. It's like a little zoo, a botanical garden. But yeah, outside it's just kind of dry and deserty in a way. But I think that that's beautiful. And I remember a long time ago when I was in Colorado, someone was like, why don't you, like the landscape of Colorado is very brown. And I was like, I'm not going to go to Brown Town. I'm sorry. I just can't. Like, it's not in me. And so, it's more interested in like the tiny things, like the alpine plants, like the micro, there's like a lush rainforest that's like teeny tiny on the ground on top of a mountain. And so like, that's really beautiful. The most pivotal thing about, I used to be nervous around the mountains. Like when we moved to Colorado, I had this like pit in my stomach. I felt kind of just nauseated. I remember going to Home Depot and crying, like, because there were rocks that said Boulder. And I was like, I live in Boulder now. But like, I went to grad school at University of Colorado and Boulder. And there was like, I went on this hike. It was like called Saddleback. Basically, it's just stair steps. And I got to the top. There was this old man up there, and he was like, he goes, "Hello, old friends." And it like made me, I was like, they're not scary. They're old friends, And from that moment, I have a different relationship with the mountains, but I wouldn't say they directly influence. I go hiking almost every day just to decompress. But yeah, I don't know, it's more like eavesdropping, life experiences, my family, my friends, people that I don't like, people that I love, there's all of that mashed in there. And like the other day when we were eating on the patio, I was like, I miss eavesdropping, like, and I was like, damn, there's so many good conversations on the street. And but yeah, a lot of that's, and I don't have very good hearing in this ear, but I can understand better through my left ear than I can't understand things through my right ear. I don't know, understand. I always talk on my like hearing impaired ear. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has this, so poll the audience. Um, but yeah, it's
Internal.
I feel like I go back to a lot to Dallas with like, if you want to talk about landscape, like, or in the work, there's just like, there's a smell of exhaust and concrete and plants, and just kind of like a sweat in the air, like, how in any city is like, here there's kind of a sweat in the air, like,
Yes, there is.
in a
Yeah.
good, in a good way, like, I don't know, there's like the the most, I was saying the other night, like, we live in our own created world, like none of this, like, it's so funny that we exist in a created world made by us, like, I don't know.
Hmm.
We don't just like live, there's like tribes that live within nature, but like we have, like, there's so many spaces that have just been like, domesticated, I guess, like, and it's interesting how our expectations change, just, by all, through all that we make,
Yeah. I mean, and again, I think it's that awareness of your visual culture world, or the way you see things, or just that fact that you said you're aware of our having created things that is different. It's what makes people who are interested in aesthetics and visual stuff kind of set apart in a way, because there's a lot of people who don't notice, or like it doesn't occur to them that the way their life looks, it only is even in this moment. Like,
I call them normcore. People that are normal.
yeah.
No, I'm not saying there's no different, but it's like there's,
No, yeah, it's different. It's like,
and it's not bad, it's just different. And it's like, we can all like have, I don't know, the intersections of life are really cool, between people that are always doing, it's just, we're just all doing something else. It's not normcore. It's just, we're all just doing something else. And we just have to once we pay attention to what another one's doing, it, yeah, like, my sister's an audiologist, and I don't know anything about that. Like, but she's like mega interested. Like, she could talk for hours, on end, and I'm just like, Kelly, I gotta go.
oh,
But
you're using the wrong ear there. You got to do it on this side.
I know this, but she doesn't really want to hear about art either. So I try not to bore her with art. Like, yeah, some people, and it's fine to not like art. Who cares? Like,
No, it's just like it's intention, or like an awareness. It doesn't even matter like which thing you like. It's sort of just
yeah,
being aware of ourselves. It's a skill, and that's kind of what comes with age too, maybe, if it can.
yeah.
We're talking about age a little bit too. But
I'm not.
whatever being an adult means, which I
I know it's
still don't
weird.
feel like one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, so your plants are your landscape, and your house is your landscape, and your family is your landscape, and that's, I think that's a very some people are kind of more interested in that internal stuff than in like looking out into the faraway landscape. I love that the plants and the people are kind of two sides of your coin. And can I just ask again about the orange eyes? What are
Oh, the orange eyes. think I didn't hear you.
No, I think I forgot to come back to it. They're just oranges.
Yeah, they're just oranges, and I have an orange on my arm, and there's this like there's an orange, or the orange is like, to me, has this like symbol, is it's like, courage and creativity and all this sort of stuff, and also that their eyes are removed in that way, that they're fruit and they're ceramic fruit and they cannot nourish anyone. And there's like this and also it's a weird thing, Jeff kept saying it looks like they have ants in their eyes, and that's another thing, that like there's this I don't know, do y'all remember that Simpsons episode where Homer's eyes crusted over? It was the grossest thing I've ever seen. And I think about that with these ladies. It's kind of like Homer's eyes that crusted over.
I don't remember, and I should, because we've watched every episode like twice. So
Yeah.
I'll have to go find that one.
Yeah. But there's also this grossness and blindness to them, that they're so, it's kind of it's like reinforcing their sort of abject, I guess, or I don't know if that's the right word to say, but they're like stoic in a way. But yeah.
Well, maybe that's part of what we were just talking about. Like, they don't notice. They're not self-aware. They're not seeing clearly, or seeing, life, or noticing things the way you just said about, how we created our own world. They're like living inside because they're kind of trapped in there. Yeah. Interesting. Well, this has been amazing. I think we have some questions in the chat, so I'm going to go over there for a sec.
Cool.
Let's see. Joshua says he loves them. Yes.
Hey, Josh.
Margarita says she can't wait to see the show. Raymond says he loves that the title of your show is She Ain't Pretty That Way. I always want to add a just. Every time I type it, I write, she just ain't pretty that way. And then I go back and I have to delete the just. I don't know. Something about, I don't know.
Bad word I'm trying to get out of my vocabulary, just.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we don't need the word.
Yeah. Well, just and should, we don't need to say, because should implies that we're not doing something right. Yeah.
Or just implies that what is coming next isn't important.
Yeah, or I'm just, like, it's kind of pathetic. Yeah. That's like the women say just a lot, I guess. That's, why I'm very like, ugh, I'm not just here,
Yeah, I'm here. Here I am.
I'm here. Hey, yeah.
Anna says she's excited to see the exhibition in person. Anna, I don't think I understand your question. Do you want to ask it in person? Are you still here?
Yes, well, hi. So I understand that this is a very personal work, and it's very intimate, related with your mother, and like very feminine. But I was just wondering if there's any reflection, if so or no, about queer aspects on your job, on your art, because I don't know, like, just thinking as an outsider that didn't hear you in this talk and just see the pieces, just a random question about the queer aspect.
No, I definitely think there is that. Like, I've always, like, I didn't know the term like body dysphoria until I, was like, I was at Oxbow teaching, and there were all these like, young kids that know way more than me. And but I was like, talking to one of the students, and I was like, I have felt that like so much in my life, like kind of, but like not necessarily a whole feeling like I'm in the wrong body, but just like a weird acceptance that I don't like, a weird feeling within myself that I don't quite am not settled with, and I don't know, there's like, I never had growing up, I didn't have like boyfriends and stuff, and my mom was like, are you a lesbian? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. Or I don't know. It was like very much in a weird way, like presented as if it was going to be a bad thing. And I think that, like there is a lot of like, like I guess non-binary feelings within myself about, just wanting to exist as a person, versus like there's so many problems that come with, the labels of gender and identity and everything like that. So yeah, I've really like, I think about that all the time. Yeah. And well, I'm glad that you can see that it comes out in the work. It like leaks out,
Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Yeah, Anna's amazingly perceptive in many ways. Chuck says he loves the gentleness of the hands. And what else? Margarita says intimate and universal. Oh, and Raymond has found us the picture of Homer, which I'm not going to open right now because I don't feel like being grossed out, but I'll look at it later.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on it. I think you should watch the video because it goes, or maybe there's a GIF probably. Yeah, it's really great.
There's a lot to learn from The Simpsons. It's actually kind of a morality lesson every single time, which is generally about actually Homer's undying love for Marge. That's always what saves them. And I'm waiting for somebody to write an art book about all of the art references in The Simpsons. I can't believe there is no book. So I'm just going to keep talking about it until somebody writes it, because it would be amazing. There's 600 episodes. There's so much art.
It's insane. Yeah, somebody could write like, Grapes of Wrath or whatever. Or what's that? What's the giant book that's
yeah, that's a big one.
For Whom the Bell Tolls. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that, but
maybe it's me. I don't have time, Margarita, if I want to write it. I feel like everybody would buy it. I don't know.
I know it could be like, your bestseller, like blow up, book deal.
Have you heard the term there? It's a million seller. There's a million in the cellar.
Oh, no.
That's what I always think about when I'm gonna write that. It'll be a million seller. Anyway, I'm so pleased to get to talk to you in real life and on Zoom. Everybody, I'm literally gonna turn this off and go in the other room and be with Joanna.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. I'm really like honored that you guys came and hung out with me for this hour, and yeah, thank you.
We're honored to have your work in the gallery, and everybody come join us on Friday.
All right, come see me. Bye,
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Talk to you later. See you next week. Oh, it's Raymond and Maria next week.